In the summer of 1997, I was 23 and taking a break from grad school. My cousin Eric had just moved to Edinburgh, Scotland for work, and he offered me the spare room in his flat if I wanted to visit for a few weeks. I jumped at the chance. I'd never been to the UK before, and Edinburgh had this gothic, brooding charm that pulled me in from the moment I stepped off the train from London. Eric's flat was in the Old Town, just off the Royal Mile. He lived in a centuries-old building near the Canongate, not far from Holyrood Palace. The structure had a crooked elegance to it, tall, narrow, with soot-darkened stone and leaded windows. The walls leaned slightly, the ceilings creaked, and there was an ever-present draught, even in the middle of August. Edinburgh, I learned quickly, was steeped in ghosts. You couldn't walk a block without passing a sign advertising a haunted tour. I went on several, most of them fun but theatrical, with actors popping out in cloaks or whispering creepy stories in candlelight. It didn't faze me. I wasn't a believer, not yet. It was Eric's building that changed that. The day after I arrived, Eric showed me around. The flat was modest but cosy. A kitchen, a small living room, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub that never fully drained. The hallway outside his unit was dim and narrow, lined with chipped wood panelling and a staircase that spiraled both up and down. Most tenants used the upstairs storage area, an old loft filled with discarded furniture and broken appliances. But it was the downstairs that stuck with me. The cellar. It wasn't technically part of the building anymore. The entrance was locked behind a thick wooden door at the foot of the staircase, but Eric had found a key in a drawer when he moved in. According to him, the cellar stretched underneath several of the buildings on the block. Back in the 1700s, it had been used for food storage, but in later centuries, it had served as an informal morgue during one of the cholera outbreaks. Bodies awaiting burial were kept down there in the cool, damp dark. Of course I thought he was messing with me. Still, he showed me the key. It was iron, long and ornate, with teeth that looked like they belonged in a dungeon door. He claimed he'd gone down once, but only a few steps in. He said the air was thick, wrong somehow, and that he'd felt watched. He never went back. It took me almost a week to get curious enough to try it myself. It was a Wednesday, mid-morning. Eric was at work, and the flat was quiet. I grabbed the key and made my way down the narrow staircase. The door at the bottom looked older than the rest of the building, thick, with rusted hinges and black iron fittings. I turned the key, and it stuck halfway, but after some pressure, it clicked and the door creaked open. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Damp earth, mould, and something coppery underneath. The light from the hallway barely reached a few feet inside. I flicked on my flashlight and stepped through. The ceiling was low and arched, made of rough, soot-streaked brick. The walls sweated moisture, and the stone floor was uneven, with shallow puddles in places. I passed stacks of rotting crates, rusted hooks in the walls, and shelves lined with broken glass and crumbling papers. I couldn't explain why I kept walking. I felt drawn forward. About 50 feet in, I found what looked like an old inspection room or office. The doorway still had hinges from where a heavy wooden door might have hung. Inside, the ceiling rose slightly, and in the centre of the room stood a table, heavy, iron-banded, with iron rings at each corner. There was dried residue on the surface, blackened, cracked. That's when the flashlight began to flicker. I tapped it, annoyed, but it dimmed to a weak orange glow before dying completely. I stood still, breathing hard, trying to decide whether to move or wait for my eyes to adjust. That's when I heard it. A breath. Not mine. It came from the other side of the room, deep, slow, and wet, as if someone was trying to inhale through a blocked throat. My chest tightened. I turned, disoriented in the dark, and felt a rush of air move past me, as if something large had swept by without touching the ground. The iron table scraped. I didn't stay to listen. I turned and ran. I tripped once, hard, and fell against the wall, scraping my arm on rough stone. I scrambled up, ignored the pain, and barreled toward the entrance. When I reached the cellar door, I slammed it shut, locked it, and dropped the key on the floor. I didn't mention anything to Eric that night. I couldn't explain what I'd felt or heard, and honestly, I doubted myself. Maybe the sounds were pipes. Maybe my mind had played tricks on me in the dark. But that wasn't the end. The next night, I woke up to something slamming in the hallway. A heavy, echoing boom, as if a door had been flung open and crashed into the wall. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened. Nothing. Just silence. The second night, it happened again, and this time, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy, not from upstairs, from below. They came up to the door of our flat and stopped. I didn't move. After what felt like minutes, I heard the steps retreat, fading back down the stairwell. On the third night, Eric heard it too. The banging, the footsteps. He looked pale in the morning, not his usual sarcastic self. He didn't say much, just drank his coffee in silence and left early for work. The flat grew colder, not just a little drafty, bone-deep cold. We tried space heaters, extra blankets, everything. Nothing helped. One morning, I found the thermostat dialed all the way down. Neither of us had touched it. Then the objects started moving. It began with small things. A spoon would fall off the counter. A picture frame would slide off the shelf. Then came the sounds. Knocks on the walls, tapping on the windows, even though we were on the second floor. Once, I found every cabinet in the kitchen open. Another time, Eric's shaving kit had been dumped into the toilet. One night, while we were both sitting in the living room with the TV on, every light in the flat flickered off simultaneously. The TV shut down, and then, from the hallway, we heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the cellar door. Eric stared at me. I didn't move. Then something started climbing the stairs, slowly, one step at a time. There were 13 stairs from the cellar to the hallway landing. I counted everyone. When the 13th step creaked, the light in the hallway flickered back on. Nothing was there. After that, Eric left the flat and stayed with a co-worker. I stayed too. I can't explain why. Maybe I felt defiant, or maybe I needed to see it through. That last night I was lying in bed, fully awake. The room felt like ice. The air was heavy, pressing down on my chest. At 3:07 a.m, the bedroom door opened on its own. I sat up. At the foot of the bed, something shifted in the darkness. I felt it, not saw it, not heard it, but felt it, like the air had a pulse. The mattress shifted, sinking slightly near my feet. I couldn't move. I felt fingers wrap around my ankle, long, cold fingers. They squeezed hard enough to leave marks, and then everything stopped. The air cleared, the cold lifted. My door shut softly. The next morning, I packed my bags. Eric never moved back in. A few weeks later, he found another flat in Newtown and let the lease expire. I never spoke to the landlord, never told anyone what really happened. But a few years later, I found an old archive online with floor plans of the Canongate block. In the 1800s, a hidden chamber beneath our building was used by resurrectionists, grave robbers, who sold corpses to the anatomy schools. The table in the cellar had been part of their prep station. I never went back. But sometimes when I wake up around 4 a.m, I can still feel the imprint of those fingers on my ankle, like something followed me, or maybe just remembered me. Either way, I remember it, and I don't need to believe anymore. I know.